But I want to talk for a few moments about the power of one. The power of one. One is a very powerful number. Leadership a lot of times boils down to singularity. One person doing one thing, one commitment to Jesus brings so many other people to Christ because of one person making a decision. We started this past week. We started this thing called My One Thing. My One Thing. My one thing is basically the thought that there's a lot of things we can bring to Jesus and say, here's all the issues I got going on. But what's the one thing that you can give God today that would allow you the opportunity to see his power move in your life? What's the one thing that allows you the privilege to separate yourself from everybody else? What's the one thing that makes you stand out from everyone else in your workplace? The one thing that allows you to be the church in your community? What's the one thing that makes you pastor more than just the church, maybe to become a pastor of a community, a broader scope? Leadership is about singularity. One person doing one thing. Few things in life excite me more than one person making one decision that impacts thousands. I think when we start to look at one person being fully committed to Jesus, something happens. Something stirs in us this idea that I can also do something great. When we see somebody else, that one person do something great, something happens that says, why can't I do that? I talk to so many people, that think, man, Pastor Tony, how is it that you're doing this and how is it that you're doing that? I'm not necessarily doing it. I'm motivated by the people that did it before me. I'm motivated by the people that did things before me, that did things great. And I said, wow, why can't I do that? I want to do that. And then there's people that follow behind me and go, Pastor Tony, I want to do that. Or Tony, I want to do this. Or Tony, I don't necessarily want to pastor a church, but I want to start my own business. I want to start a company. It all oftentimes comes down to one decision. One thing, the power of one. The power of one. Fully committed people often do one thing that makes the difference. Fully committed people do one thing that dramatically changes the scope of everything. And they often don't even know what that is. What often happens, though, it's a series of mistakes. And I remember hearing a story a long time ago. Forgive me for this chopped up story a little bit, but I think the illustration makes itself clear. When someone had discovered something, they said, how did you come up to that, finally making that one thing? How did you create that one thing? He said, well, I learned out of my 100+ mistakes, I learned 100 ways not to do it. And so eventually I'd stumbled upon the one that actually worked. If you're hearing what I'm saying, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're hearing what I'm saying. I think oftentimes it's a matter of one decision that stands apart from everything else. I love it when I hear about one man who makes a decision. I love it when I hear about one man that made a decision to lead his home. To lead his home. Not leave, but lead his home to righteousness. One man that made a decision that, you know what, I may not get that huge promotion, but I'm going to hold to integrity because of one decision that could have turned his whole career. He could have made the 6 figures, but instead he decided, I'm not chasing the 6 figures. I'm chasing integrity. I'm chasing character. I'm chasing the one thing that really I cannot give up. The one thing that I cannot compromise. The one thing, the remarkable thing that God has given us, the opportunity to be truth, to be light, to be the way leadership boils down to singularity. Listen, Jesus' style was the epitome of one. Think about it. He was one man who decided to start one ministry to minister to people in a way that revolutionized how the disciples saw ministry. It revolutionized how the Sadducees and Pharisees saw ministry. It revolutionized how everybody saw God. They saw a rabbi, they saw someone that did a lot of great things. Granted, I'll give you that. But there were some people that said there's something more to this man. One of these Pharisees that hotly contested his claims to godliness. He disregarded the keeping of the Sabbath, and man, this guy just doesn't do things like everybody else. This one, Jesus was the one. He was the one. This one guy, he just won't quit. This one guy is shaping and reshaping. Herod went after the one baby. He killed a lot of people to get the one king. The one who would rule Israel. The one that would change the landscape of kingship. He killed a lot of babies to get to one. See, people made a lot of mistakes questioning him on all sorts of matters. They majored in the minors. And I'm afraid that the churches in America today major in minors. Is that right? So let me boil this down to one question. Can you boil down your mission to the one thing? If God said, I want you to do one thing, what would that be? If God said you were supposed to do one thing on this earth and money was not an issue, what would you do? If God said there was one thing you were allowed to do, regardless of money, regardless of influence, regardless of location, regardless of family situations, if God said you can do one thing, what would that be? Can you boil down your mission to one thing? I don't know if you can, but I know one thing, that there's a power in one. There's a power in one. Jesus replied, and I want to read this out of John 10:10. If you would allow me this opportunity, John 10:10 tells us something interesting. Let me just grab my Bible here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, that kind of tuned in here. I don't like to broadcast when I'm going to go on. Sometimes I just feel led to do it. I talked to Pastor Josh earlier. Maybe if Pastor Josh is he can come in, log in here, and talk to you for a few minutes too. John 10:10 tells us something that I want to read to you specifically. And here's what it says. John 10:10. That the thief does not come except to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But it was shortly thereafter that Jesus then replied this. He says this: I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. The thief doesn't come except to steal, kill, and destroy. But I came that you may have life more abundantly. Jesus, one thing served him well. I find it interesting because out of all the things he said one thing. He said, I have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly. He could have said, I have come to get you straight because you're all messed up. You're all jacked up, right? He could have said, I have come to, straighten you out because you got a laundry list of problems. But I can't seem to put to bed this idea that God has one thing for you and there's one thing blocking you from getting to that one thing. Big shout out to my queen who logged on. The thief doesn't come but to steal, kill, and destroy. And the one thing that was that Jesus, for in essence, for the lack of a better term, posted in John 10:10, he said, I've come that you may have life more abundantly. Man, if only we would have life more abundantly. If only we would have life more abundantly. So, what's the one thing? Do you need to spend some time finding that one thing? We did around the altar yesterday. We had an amazing service yesterday. For those of you that you think that just logging on Facebook and catching it live is enough, you got to be in the room, man. You got to be in the room, because it's amazing to see what God is doing in our body and the church here at Freedom. We're on this amazing journey right now, and it doesn't make us any more special. And I tell this to the body: don't think you're extra special. But I'll tell you one thing: there's something about getting into the presence of God that causes me to look at the one thing and go, that one thing is not big enough to hold me back. That one thing is not big enough to keep me away from his presence. Jesus, one thing served him well. His thoughts on the Pharisees and the Sadducees, their prejudices and misconceptions of what the church should be, still rings into our churches today. Well, Pastor Tony, you can't do this and you can't do that. Or, man, there's a lot of myths about the church today. There's a lot of myths about, I don't need to go to church to follow God. Friend, if you know my heart, I hope you understand something. I'm going to make this very clear to you. You don't have to go to church to be saved. But I sure believe that you need to go to church to stay sanctified. You don't have to agree with me. And you don't. But this is my Facebook Live. You go Facebook Live and you tell the world what you think. I'm telling you right now that unless you get around the body of people that believe and like faith like you, and believe in God and believe in the things of God, that are willing to push you beyond your parameters, that are willing to push you beyond your borders, you have not lived the Christian life that God has called you to live. You have not lived life more abundantly if you're living it by yourself. Leadership is a rare skill of being able to help people find the one. Find the one. Jesus found the one so important that he said, I'd leave the 99 to go get the, follow me, one. To follow the one. I think leaders are born, but leadership is formed. They are born leaders, but there are people that will die leaders. They will never have leadership. Are you following what I'm saying? Give me some love right now on Facebook here. Help me out if you understand what I'm saying to you. Leaders are born, but leadership is grown. It is formed. It is the thing that takes time to build. Leaders are readers. But not all readers are leaders. I'm going to say that again. Leaders are readers, but not all readers are leaders. There are people that are born. They're shaped to be fantastic. They're born originals, but they die a copy. Okay, I don't want to take too much time, but I got to tell you right now. Effective leadership It's not what you think. Effective leadership, I'm learning this day by day, that what I think is important, sometimes Jesus hasn't even given it a second thought. We pride ourselves here at Freedom to give a good quality product. I pride myself as a person to put good things on Instagram and encourage you. If you're not following us on Instagram, Freedom Life Church, we are Freedom Lewisburg. Just look up Freedom Lewisburg on Instagram, Freedom Lewisburg on Facebook. We put out some good things that encourage you. And for me on Twitter, I don't like to get on Twitter and just post dumb things, or sometimes I'll just say shout out to some people, but I like to put nuggets out there because I believe your time is worth it. And if I can give you something that would allow you to grow 140 characters at a time, I would like to do that. But I think the one thing that Jesus really did well is to help people find their one thing. So you may ask yourself, what's the one thing I have to offer this world? I encourage you to find the one thing that will change somebody else's life. And I said this to the body yesterday, and I'll share this with you as I shared it with Freedom. Every calling that God has put on everyone's life always affects people. Again, you can subscribe to whatever you want to believe, but I'm telling you this, that there's never been a calling that God has put on your life that doesn't affect other people. And so when we look at leadership, it's a hard thing to grasp in a nutshell, but it's affecting people with the power of God. When you talk about pastoring leadership, pastoral leadership, and that's kind of separate than running a company. A pastoral leadership is about allowing people to find their one thing, and in the process help them get the one thing out of their way that will get them to the one thing. Oftentimes we had this one thing, like the rich young ruler that came to Jesus. He said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Well, it's the one thing. Follow the commands. He says, I've been doing that since I was a kid. What are you talking about? That's great. That's fantastic news. I'm doing it right. Then he says, sell everything you have, give to the poor. And he's like, wait a second, what? Leadership is a complex human process full of trial and error. It is a complex process of victories and defeats. It's insights, it's intuitions. It's the ability to see a dynamic influctuation of life and seeing it and go, you know what? In light of everything I see, my calling is not based on what I see. My calling is not based on what I see. My calling is based on who I trust. Always see that rare environment of leadership as being an endowment from God to change the world around you. To all my pastoral friends, I want to say I appreciate you for standing in the front lines and praying in the front lines. And for all of those that are in our Freedom Body for these 21 days, man, we got about a week left here. Can I encourage you? Pray, man. Pray for us, pastors. Pray for your local leadership. Pray for people around you that you know are becoming influential in your community. Pray for your local leadership politically. And know that this country, as divided as it is right now, Jesus is still on the throne. And I haven't let go of that. We here at Freedom haven't let go of that. I think when we start to realize that Jesus came to give you life more abundantly, when we realize that Jesus summed up his whole ministry in one thought. He says the enemy comes to do these things: steal, kill, destroy. That's what he wanted. That's what he wants to do. He wants to steal your joy. He wants to steal your finances. He wants to kill. He wants to kill your family. He wants to kill your dreams. He wants to kill your passions. Man, if you can just settle with where you're at. Just live mediocre. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be passionate 100% of the time. You don't have to be this, that, and the other. Let me tell you something. He wants to kill that passion in your life. I think about people who want to start businesses, people that want to start companies, people that want to start things in their life. The enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy that dream in your life. And he'll do it by saying, you know what, there's no way. You're not going to have the finances to do that. There's no way. You're not going to have the personnel to do that. There's so much to do. There's so many things that you need to get done. He wants to kill that joy in you. But my one thing says, you know what? My one thing is to not pay attention to the steal, kill, destroy attitude. What does he want to destroy? He wants to destroy the purpose of God in your life. Friend, I want to make this very clear to you. There is so much potential that lies within you. If you knew what that looked like, you would have made this decision yesterday. He says the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life